of my time in the university Pangong rather than in the library. So I was writing plays and staging them, and I had a wonderful time because that was where I honed my craft. That was where I learned how to work with actors and how to direct plays and to explore what I could do and to learn something about myself as well and to express what I wanted to express. So this is a good time for you to do, you may have a very strong interest that you want to pursue. It may be outside of what you're studying. This is a good time to try it. The campus is a fertile ground for you to pursue that interest. If you have a passion for something, discover it. No, you would have discovered it by now. Pursue that passion. This is the beginning stage. This is where you can do it. The world is your oyster. You're young. You have years ahead of you. You have plenty of opportunity to explore things, to try out things, and to learn and discover. And there's no better time than now.
So,
as you do it.
Sorry. So you also want to share with them how to be a good literature student, for example. I think reading, I think Mr. Key here will tell us how to be a good literature student, Mr. Key.
There is no secret to being a good literature student. I don't think I was really a good literature student myself. When I was in university, I went to University Science Malaysia and enrolled in the School of Humanities.
Different school.
In fact, I originally wasn't planning on going to university, because of finances. After I finished my Form 6, I immediately applied for a job. And I got a job straight away. I applied to MAS. And I got a job as a traffic clerk stationed in Subang Airport. I come from Penang. I was born and bred in Penang. But I came down to work in Subang Airport. But after 2 days, I got very bored, Traffic clerk, every day you fill out cargo manifests. You don't interact much with people. It's just you're interacting with the piece of paper. So I said to the airport manager, can I, be transferred to another department? He said no. So, and while I was here in KL, I met somebody who told me, if you have a chance to go to university, you should go. So I thought about that. I decided to apply to USM because it was in my hometown. And therefore it was pretty affordable. So I put in my application to USM. Then after 2 days, because the airport manager said I couldn't be transferred to another department, I decided to quit. And then I went back to Penang to teach part-time, not part-time, temporarily in my primary school. That was for about 3 months. In between, I got accepted into USM. So I went, I enrolled in the School of Humanities. And in the first year of the School of Humanities, we were exposed to different fields of study, ranging from history to fine arts, to literature, to performing arts, and so on, and to philosophy as well. So I am in mass communications. Actually, I was thinking of majoring in mass communications because I was quite interested at that time in journalism. But even before that, I was interested in becoming a lawyer. But I couldn't afford to go to law school, so that one went out the window.
You have a lot of interest in this. That is so good now. That's so good. I like the fact that you touched on you actually studied history. Because can I just go back to your literary work? Yeah, the first one we could. How do you actually say
asterisk, 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 asterisk.
Very long. We could asterisk, 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 asterisk on Mr. Birch. Luckily not hashtag, hashtag, hashtag. Then we will be viral. Okay. So let's talk about this play here. Now, this is what we in literature or literary theory will call, well, maybe not intertext, but rather it is an allegorical text to, I'm sure any one of you know, I'm sure maybe some of them may not know, but for Malaysians, do you know who Mr. Birch is? Anyone would like to shout who Mr. Birch is? Come on, Malaysians. No?
Sometimes he's a hero, sometimes he's a villain.
But do you know Mr. Birch? Because I once asked in my class, they didn't know who Mr. Birch is. They have no idea. I want to talk about history now. So, yes. Any one of you know who is Mr. Birch? Do you know who is Mr. Birch? Yes. Who is he then? I'm just referring to the real historical event. Do you know who Mr. Birch is? Yes, no? So they know, good. Okay, so we know that it is a historical event in which J.W. Birch was actually killed by Datuk Maharaja Lela, a nationalist from Perak. So can I just ask you, why did you choose that particular event to be recreated in your play? Would you like to share with the students?
You see, actually, I took the historical event not to reenact it, but to actually talk about the present. That's what the play is about. So I play with that historical episode. I had a lot of fun with it, and what I was trying to bring across in the play is not so much the fact that Birch was assassinated and so on, but what we can learn in the present. What parallels can we draw between the past and the present? The themes of self-interest, personal greed, the clash of cultures, the loss of cultural identity, and things like that. But I do it in a fun way, because the play is, I deliberately wrote it like, as a form of satirical comedy, dark comedy sometimes. And I have actors, they are supposed to be playing characters in the past, and then in the middle of the scene, they suddenly step out of character and they talk about something in the present, based on what is happening to them there and then in the scene. So it dawns on them, this is a reflection about what is also happening in the present. And in that sense, I link both the past and the present. So that's why it was the historical episode was just a jumping off point.
I believe it's also good because now we do need a bit of historical influence or inspiration coming in, which is also the inspiration behind your 2018 play Swordfish and Concubine. I think it was originally called the Swordfish, then the Concubine, and then you decided to combine it into two. I believe Malaysians here would be familiar with the tale of the swordfish, Singapura dilanggar todak, in which Mr. Chye here actually based the character Hang Nadim, the 12-year-old boy, and creatively reenacted, as you said, and combined it with another tale from, you call it Sejarah Melayu, but for the Malay literature people, they will know it's called Sulatu Salatin. The original title called Genealogy of Kings, and Temple Raffles was the one who changed it into the Malay Annals, and then it became Sejarah Melayu, 15th century text, yeah? about the covenant between Sang Nila Utama and Demang Lebar Daun, yeah, in which it is a reflection of also something you feel strongly about. So would you like to tell us also why you decided to choose those two tales from a very traditional Malay literature text?
Actually, this play was written quite a long time ago, about 20 over years ago. And since then, I've revised it and revised it and revised it and finally staged it here in KL in 2017. And then when I was finally satisfied that it had arrived at a publishable form, then I had it published. Otherwise, I wouldn't have done so. I took two tales from Sejarah Melayu, which are actually not related to each other. Again, like the Mr. Birch historical episode, these two tales are just jumping off points. Again, I play with them, and again, the play is not about reenacting the stories of the Sejarah Melayu so much as to talk about the present. So, Swordfish plus Concubine is also a satire. And it is a political satire in a lot of senses. Because, I mean, if you know the story of Hang Nadim, who saved Singapura from the swordfish attack, you know the story? Yeah. Let me just tell you very briefly. Swordfish attack Singapura. A lot of people are killed. The Sultan tells his men to go down to the beach, form a wall with their bodies to stop the swordfish from attacking the people. What happens? The swordfish kill those men instead, and they all drop like flies. Then here comes Hang Nadim. Hang Nadim said, "Why are you doing that? Why are you sending men out to die? Why don't you cut the stems of the banana tree and form a rampart, kind of like a fence, against the swordfish?" And so the men cut the banana stems, form a rampart. The swordfish attacked, but they got stuck in the stems. And then the men managed to kill the swordfish and destroy the scourge. And so Singapura was saved. So, Hang Nadim saved Singapura. What do you think should happen to him? What should he get out of it?
Rewarded.
Sorry?
He should be rewarded.
Huh? He should be rewarded, right? Ah. Instead, he was executed. Now that's a very powerful story. Powerful archetypal tale, which is eternal, which is still relevant today. And so I use that, not just to tell the story of old, but to talk about the present. Similarly with the story of the concubine. The concubine was the Sultan's favorite concubine in the Sejarah. But other people were jealous of her. And so they started, trumping up charges against her, saying that she did this, she did that, she committed adultery, and so on and so forth. And then the Sultan just had her punished by sentencing her to death by impalement. In Malay, it's called hukum sula. It's a very painful way to die. Do you have any idea of death by impalement? How it is done? Yes?
You can use your imagination. You're not having to go there. Yeah.
So again, I take this story, I link the two, so it's not two separate stories, it's actually one whole play, and I make a connection between the two in my own way. And then I also bring in the covenant between Sri Tribuana and Demang Lebar Daun, which is the central focus of the play, actually. This covenant says, Sri Tribhuwana says to Demang Leba Dawan, your subjects will always be faithful to my descendants, no matter what they do to them. Even if my descendants are cruel to your descendants, they must still be loyal to my descendants. So Demang Leba Dawan said, oh wow, that's a tough one, right? Would you agree? Isn't it tough? Even if the rulers are cruel to the subjects still have to be loyal to the rulers. And so the Demang Leba Dawan said, okay, then I will require from you something in return. That if any of the rulers who are your descendants should shame any of his subjects, my descendants, then the kingdom will be destroyed by God Almighty. And so they make this covenant. So I take this covenant and I think about what it represents to us today. Does it still hold? And that's it's a question that I throw out to the audience for them to figure out. That covenant, is it still there? Is it still valid? Do you still want it? Do you want a ruler who wants your total loyalty, your absolute loyalty, even if the ruler is cruel to you?
There's a proviso there, we call it a disclaimer. Proviso is what we call bersyarat, yeah, perjanjian bersyarat. That's the proviso there. So this is an example of an intertextuality. Intertext meaning your text referring to other texts. And I like the fact, I think all of us really appreciate the fact that you have made that bridge, yeah, to bridge Malay literature and English literature, similar to our other English or rather Malay now, Sastrawan Negara Muhammad Haji Saleh, in which he wrote about the sajak-sajak sejarah Melayu, and he retold the story of certain tales from the Malay text, the Malay annals, with the intent of reminding the current society about the social issues. So going back to the text now, I'm glad you highlight the fact that you need reading, because how do you appreciate and understand literature, Mr. Key, for our students? Do they only look at the text? Because from what you're saying is that you've got to go beyond the text. You have to refer to other texts in order to understand the data, we call it data, yeah? Or the text we're using. Would you like to share your views on that?
Yeah, definitely. Of course, when you look at a literary work, you don't just look at what is inside there. You also have to research what is the cultural context of that work. What caused it to be produced? What is the historical context of that work? And perhaps also the circumstances that drove the writer to write it. Now these things will help you to have a deeper understanding of that literary work. Then it's also useful if you read what people have studied of the work. You don't have to accept what others say as being correct. You must learn to form your own opinion, and you do that by, of course, analyzing the text yourself. Of course, in order to do that, you need to have the tools of analysis, and I suppose that is what you are gathering by taking a course in literature in this university.
Yes, that's true. We always tell our students, UPM being a research university, RU since 2006. Therefore, we always encourage our students to actually go outside the box. how to appreciate and understand literature, works of literature. And maybe you would like to share with all of us today on what are the good readings for our literature students. Do they just need to read works of literature, contemporary literature, whereas your own text, although contemporary, you refer to a 15th century text. So that is a very good message I see there. Would you like to share with them?
I think you must read widely. And by that I mean, okay, if you want to read literature, not just literature, homegrown literature, not just literature here, literature of other cultures, other lands, that will open your eyes to how other cultures operate, how other people from other lands live, because literature encapsulates a lot of the cultural ethos of a people. So when you read, say, a novel from Japan, you also get a sense of the culture of Japan. You get a sense of how Japanese live. You get a sense of how they behave, of how they think. And then it will also deepen your understanding of humanity. The bottom line of reading literary texts usually is because you want to get a deeper sense of humanity, so that perhaps you can also become a better person. I think good literary works affirm life. And so when you read good literature, you get a sense of life in its positive essence, usually. But of course, you must read widely, not just literature. You must read about history, politics. And politics is very important because it is what concerns you every day. You may say, no, it doesn't, I can't be bothered. Yeah. Nobody, so what if I don't know about what the government is doing now? It doesn't matter what. I can still get by, I can still stay in my own cocoon, I can just go to university, go to the library, mark, pass exam, okay, come out, get a job, and that's it. Forget about everything else. Don't think about politics and what's happening to my country. No, because politics will somehow or other have an effect on you, even in the smallest way.
Yes.
So you got to be politically aware. So read about politics, read about history, read as whatever you want to read. There's so much out there in the world. Gather knowledge, and reading is one of the best ways to gather knowledge.
I'd like to go back to your first play, 1984 Here and Now, published in 1987, which is another example of an intertext, because this is based on the novel 1984. Anyone be familiar with the novel by George Orwell? Yes, George Orwell's 1984. So this was your first one, and then you're also a social commentator, in which your latest book.
Actually, it's not my first play. I've written many other plays before when I was in university. Yeah.
Okay, so published. Sorry, Mr. Key. So published books under your list of publication, but you also have in this year the People's Victory, which also won an award. Yeah, no?
Yeah. That's right. That prize.
1, 2, 3, you won. That's it. Yeah. So congratulations for winning it. So the People's Victory is your own social commentary on the country, the nation, and you have also other collections here. Just in so many words, in which is a compilation of your articles when you were
journalistic writings. Yeah.
Journalistic writings.
This was a long time ago. Yeah, long time.
You're still here.
Yeah, but this one, well, this is a culmination of 10 years. In the last 10 years, I concentrated on writing about politics. And in those 10 years, I produced 10 books on politics. And this is the last and the latest one. It's a document of what happened at GE14, the 14th general election, how it came about, from my own perspective. You see, in the last 10 years, I could not keep quiet about politics. There were a lot of things happening that I was not happy with, that a lot of people were not happy with. And so I felt I had to take a stand, I had to talk, but it's not that it's the first time that I ever took a stand. I've always taken a political stand. In my earlier plays from 1984 Here and Now, which was written in 1984 actually, The Big Purge, Mr. Birch, Swordfish plus Concubine, these are all political plays. Actually, I entered the political phase of writing my plays when I first came down to Kuala Lumpur in the late 1980s. When I was in university, I was writing mostly absurd drama. You see, at that age, I was also writing poetry. I was in my late teens. At that age, you are questioning, who am I? What is life all about? Am I just going to live and then die and then that's the end of it? What is the meaning of life and so on and so forth? So, all this is poured out in poetry. and then when I went to university, I discovered absurd drama, which, gelled with me because it was also addressing themes of, meaninglessness of life, inability between people to communicate, the decline of language, and so on. And so I wrote quite a number of absurd plays in my university days.
I believe that in the words of Professor Terry Eagleton, the Marxist professor, the only one still living, that writers like yourself are actually social commentators. You use literary texts to document, like you said, to document a certain event, very important event, because it is a vehicle for social truth.
Yes, of course. And especially if you write it in the creative form, you strive to get at the truth as much as you can. I have to admit, of course, as a writer, what I put across is my own personal truth. All right? I do not claim that it is truth with a capital T. And it's up to you whether you accept that truth or not. If you don't, it's fine. I'm not going to force it down your throat. So, yeah, I think if you look at my plays now, even like a play like 1984 Here and Now, which was written in 1984, which is 35 years ago, somebody did a translation of it into Chinese just about 3 years ago and staged it. So we are talking about 30 over years later. When I watched the play, I was shocked. Because the issues in this play, 30 over years ago, are still present today. So yes, you're right. In that sense, the social commentator role is very obvious. Because all my plays encapsulate some period of time in our political history, social history.
I believe that as a writer, because you have the creative license, you have the artistic license to write about all these things, so that when you frame it in literature, you sort of cushion us from some truths which may not be truly acceptable by some people, which is not really something new, because in the Malaysian literary scene we have the late Shahnun Ahmad, who wrote the really what we call controversial book with regards to a certain event in the Malaysian political scene called,
Shit.
Yes. Which brings me to your next book. Also, maybe an intertext, I don't know, to Shahnun's earlier writings. But like I said, I don't know whether you feel that writers have this social or moral obligation to actually share or actually narrate the story, because like Carl Jung says, everyone has a story, and in order for them to let it out, they have to tell the story. And in your case, you do it in both ways. One is fiction, one is non-fiction. I want to go to the genre you have chosen for fiction, which is plays. Why is it that you're not a novelist? You say you're a short story writer. You have written poems. So this is very rare, because we have people in play here from the Malay department, Dr. Fazila, from the English department, Dr. Arbaya and Dr. Zaino, who are interested in theatre studies. So maybe you would like to share with all the students why plays, Mr. Key.
First of all, I'd like to go back to what you said earlier. No, I think it is because we have artistic license that we can actually get to the truth of things. We do not try and hide the truth. We do not try and make it more palatable. I don't think that is the aim of any creative writer. Yes, we don't filter it. No, I think, and this artistic license is what allows us this freedom to do so, to get at the truth, the raw truth, the naked truth. As for the social and moral obligation of a writer to tell stories, that is not my own understanding of it. I tell stories because I want to tell stories. That's all. I don't say, oh, wake up this morning, all right, now I'm obliged to write a story, to tell a story.
So the students, writers don't say, oh, I'm going to wake up today and write about feminism. No, we don't. No, you apply. You don't say this is a family stack. No, you don't. I don't think writers wake up and saying they want to write about this and that. They just write from their soul, from their heart, from their soul, right?
That's right. Yeah. Now, why am I not a novelist? Interesting. Let me read for you. I've actually brought something along that I thought might